Some men were sitting around discussing the meaning of life. And one of them turned to the others and he says, if tomorrow all your loved ones found themselves at a funeral, gathered around your casket, what would you want to hear them say? The first one starts off and says, I hope they would say that I was a good father and husband. A second one chimed in, I want them to say that I was not only successful, but a kind and generous man too. The last one thought about it a second and then he says, I want them to say, hey, look, he's moving. The title of today's talk is, The Lack of Religion Can Make You Crazy. And when I say religion, I don't necessarily mean big, organized religion. I mean the internal religion based on heartfelt faith and spiritual practice. Without spiritual faith and practice, our lives are without foundation. Our lives without the benefit of the loving guidance and stability of infinite intelligence are somewhat unstable. Now the word that for that condition where you don't have that special connection is called meaning. Meaning in your life. Without meaning in your life, you have nothing to protect you from the craziness that we call life. And you can very easily be sucked into that craziness. Anxiety disorders, neuroses, depression. Find yourself filled with stress, doubt, and fear. In his book, The Search for Meaning, Dr. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Nazi death camps, says, as to the causation of the feeling of meaninglessness, one might say, although in an oversimplifying way, that people who have enough to live by, but nothing to live for. They have the means, but no meaning. Dr. Frankl has declared that people who survived the death camps survived because they had meaning in their life. They had something to live for. Those who did not have meaning did not survive. A few days ago, my wife Sandy sent me the link to an online video entitled, Why the Lack of Religion Breeds Mental Illness. The video put forth the argument that the tendency of modern society to disconnect from religion and to even make fun of it by calling it fake news and unproven mythology are totally missing the point. The video was placed up there by a group, an organization known as the Academy of Ideas. And basically what the Academy of Ideas was trying to convey was that the fact that without meaning in one's life, without meaning, there's a sense of emptiness, unbalance, and even mental instability. I'm sure we had an example of that yesterday with the shooting of 10 people in Buffalo at the Tops Market. That video that I watched presented the case that having meaning in one's life and having a connection to God through religious belief and practices go hand in hand. A man named Lewis Mumford also addressed that issue. Now, Mumford was an American historian, sociologist, philosopher of technology, urban planner, and literary critic. He was among the first urban planning scholars who paid serious attention to the effect of religion in the field of urban planning. He stated in his 2-volume book, The Myth of the Machine, he said, mechanics became the new religion, and it gave to the world a new messiah, the machine. Modernity has come to idolize the machine, and war is the health of the machine. When the Cold War ended, the machine found the war on terror. When those battles faded or appeared only sporadically on a small scale, the machine then pivoted to make war on invisible pathogens. It is a war that we cannot ultimately win. Nature always bats in the bottom of the ninth inning, and any victories are only provisional. Mr. Mumphrey goes on to argue in another one of his books called Faith for Living, the segregation of the spiritual life from the practical life is a curse that falls impartially upon both sides of our existence. Dr. Carl Jung, the famous psychiatrist who brought us analytical psychology, he introduced us to the concept of the collective unconsciousness. He developed the mythological structure of archetypes. He tells us that the so-called myths of religion that have existed and endured for thousands of years have tremendous value to us and to our lives. Dr. Jung says, we like to imagine something which we do not understand does not help us in any way. But that is not always so. Myths have a direct effect upon the unconscious, no matter whether it is understood or not. A direct effect. I believe that cutting ourselves off from God separates us from any chance of mental stability, because without God, we have no roots. I'm reminded of the giant redwood trees that grow in California. They grow to amazing heights, yet their roots are very shallow. They actually depend on each other, the other redwood trees around them whose roots link with theirs in order for them to stay upright, to stay standing tall. Yet if you spend any time in a redwood forest, it is not unusual to come upon one of these giants laying flat on the ground because it has fallen over with its roots sticking in the air. On the other hand, we have the great oak trees. Now, when an oak tree starts to grow, the first thing it does is to send its taproot deep into the ground, searching for the source of life, water. It doesn't begin to grow up and out of the soil until it has made that connection. You don't often see oak trees falling over. So the contrast between the oak tree and the redwood reminds me of a passage in the Bible's book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. The passage says, "Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell not, for it was founded on a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man who built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it." We are in a spiritual war. And those who are leading the charge against us, those who are trying to separate us from our spiritual faith and practices by discounting our faith as baseless, by discounting our faith as without merit, are materialistic power brokers who are in control of our governmental and economic policies. Now, one of those power brokers is a man named Dr. Yuval Harari. He's a key advisor to the leaders of such organizations as the World Economic Forum. A couple of weeks ago, I shared this comment with you that he made. He said, "If you spend hours praying to non-existent guardian spirits, aren't you wasting precious time? Time better spent foraging and fighting and fornicating?" Frankly, that doesn't Another member of the scientific community agrees with me. The highly respected scientist Albert Einstein said, "The man who regards his own life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not only unfortunate, but almost disqualified from life." As I said before, we are in the middle of a spiritual war. Our opponents in this war are the so-called wealthy and powerful brokers who label us as useless eaters. They claim that we ordinary people contribute nothing to the world. They consider us of little value. They would actually like to reduce our numbers and put us under the control of the machines. They look down their noses at us and sometimes even refer to us as rats in a maze. But the truth of the matter is that they are the unfortunate ones. They are living in a crumbling existence of selfishness, greed, and war. They have no meaning in their lives, only money and power and addiction. As a result, what they have is never enough. They control trillions of dollars, and yet they resent the comparatively meager possessions that we have. A man named Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, has declared, "You will own nothing and be happy." You will own nothing and be happy. According to Anthony P. Mueller, a professor of economics, he says the main thrust of the World Economic Forum is global control. Free markets and individual choice do not stand as top values, but instead they seek state interventionism and collectivism. According to their plans, individual liberty and private property will disappear from this planet by 2030. As I said earlier, we are in the middle of a spiritual war. The lack of spiritual faith and practices among those people has pushed them into a state of mental illness. I mean, how else would you describe someone who believes they are big enough and have the right to take over the world? So what do we do about those dangerous, mentally ill threats to our well-being? Should we treat them like the monsters they are and bring out the pitchforks and torches? Think pitchforks and torches. But anger and violence only stimulate similar responses of anger and violence. We know better. We know that the answer is to go to a higher authority. We know that the answer is to turn to the one who is really in charge. Remember our first spiritualist principle. We believe in infinite intelligence. Number two, we believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. So let me remind you, infinite intelligence is not subject to the plans of a group of men and women who think they are above the law. Infinite intelligence is all there is, and we are in alignment with infinite intelligence. And we also follow principle number 6. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So what should we do for these misguided people who see themselves as the rulers of the world? We should pray for them. We should pray for their healing. We are spiritual warriors. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and as a part of that experience, we are the embodiment of love. Their delusions of world domination can be classified as mental illness. They have no belief or acknowledgement or respect for infinite intelligence or for those of us who believe in infinite intelligence. But we also know the truth, that we can help them climb out of their pits of darkness by sending them love, by embracing the words of Jesus uttered upon the cross. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. So as I look around this room, I do not see useless eaters. I do not see rats in a maze. I see spiritual beings who will not bow down to the godless oppressors, but who have the power within themselves to look upon others through the eyes of light, through the eyes of spirit. We have the power to send healing energy to those lost souls in order to help them climb out of that depth of darkness that they are living, to help them climb out of the destructive course that their lives have been set upon. We have the power to send them healing energy so they can turn around and they can use their considerable power. They can use their considerable wealth to make this world a better place, not just for them, but for all of us, for everybody, for the well-being of the citizens of this world who deserve better lives. These poor, demented souls have no idea of what they're dealing with. Remember spiritualist principle number 7. We affirm the moral responsibility of the individual and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. Now, I think we could make a pretty good guess that there's some unhappy people up there because they're definitely disobeying nature's physical and spiritual laws. But there is hope. Spiritualist principle number 8 says, we affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any soul, here or hereafter. So there's still hope for these people. There's still hope for these mentally ill people who think they can rule the world. We can send them love. We can send them healing. You are powerful beyond measure. So let us, you and me, go deep within ourselves and connect with the source of love and life within us, the living waters of spirit, the ever-present and underlying power of infinite intelligence that is in all, over all, and through all. And as our loving influence expands from one to another, to another, to another, throughout this world, let us bring our world, this planet we call Earth, into a state of peace, harmony,